Have you ever imagined surviving in the wild with no help at all? In this video, you'll join me on an unbelievable journey, 7 days surviving deep in the forest, where every challenge awaits. But that's not even the most extraordinary part. Picture this on a 100-meter high cliff. I built a wooden house with my own hands, the only shelter to protect me from wild animals and unexpected dangers. How did I overcome the fear of heights? How did I find water, food, and a way to survive? This journey isn't just a test of physical endurance, it's a true challenge of mental strength. Don't look away, because the most thrilling part will leave you breathless. Sophia was 27 years old, living in a bustling city where concrete towers stretched high into the sky and green spaces were few and far between. She worked as a marketing specialist for a fast-paced agency, spending her days glued to a computer screen and her nights endlessly scrolling through social media. Despite her success at work, she felt disconnected from herself, from nature, and from the sense of purpose she had always craved. Sophia grew up in the countryside, where her parents owned a small farm. Her childhood was filled with memories of planting seeds, watching vegetables grow, and picking fresh tomatoes under the summer sun. She often found herself reminiscing about those simple days and wishing for a way to bring a piece of that life back to her reality. One evening, while walking home from work, Sophia noticed an empty, neglected lot in her neighborhood. It was overgrown with weeds, littered with trash, and completely overlooked by the busy city around it. But where others saw an eyesore, Sophia saw potential. An idea began to take root. What if she could transform the space into a community garden? Sophia spent weeks researching urban gardening and talking to neighbors. While some were enthusiastic, others were skeptical. It's a nice idea, but who has time for gardening? One neighbor remarked. Still, Sophia was determined. She reached out to the city council, pitched her idea, and after months of negotiations, received permission to use the lot for her project. Using her savings, Sophia bought soil, seeds, and basic gardening tools. She started clearing the lot on weekends, often working alone. It was exhausting, and there were moments she felt overwhelmed by the sheer scale of the project. But little by little, others began to join her. A retired teacher from down the street offered to help plant herbs. A group of college students volunteered to build raised garden beds. Slowly, the space began to transform. Sophia named the garden the Green Patch and opened it to anyone who wanted to grow their own fruits, vegetables, or flowers. She organized workshops in composting, organic farming, and sustainable living. The garden became a sanctuary, not just for plants, but for people seeking a break from the chaos of city life. But the journey wasn't without challenges. Funding was tight, and not everyone treated the garden with care. One morning, Sophia arrived to find that a section of the garden had been vandalized. Plants were uprooted and tools were stolen. Heartbroken, she questioned whether her dream was worth the struggle. Her neighbors rallied around her, offering to help her plant and replace the stolen items. "This garden is more than just yours, Sophia," said Mrs. Hernandez, who had been growing peppers in one of the plots. "It belongs to all of us now." With renewed determination, Sophia continued to nurture the garden. Local businesses began to take notice, donating supplies and sponsoring small events. The Green Patch hosted weekly farmers markets where residents could sell their produce, and it became a venue for yoga classes, outdoor movie nights, and school field trips. The garden also brought the community closer together. People who had lived on the same street for years but had never spoken now exchanged gardening tips and recipes. Children learned how to grow their own food, and elderly residents found joy in tending to the plants. 5 years later, the Green Patch was unrecognizable from the abandoned lot it had once been. It had grown into a vibrant oasis in the heart of the city, filled with flourishing plants and the laughter of people coming together. Sophia left her marketing job to focus on urban gardening full-time, helping other neighborhoods create their own green spaces. Reflecting on her journey, Sophia often said, "A single seed can change the world, but it takes a community to help it grow." The Green Patch was more than a garden, it was proof that even in the busiest cities, there's room for connection, growth, and a little bit of green. Elliot was a 31-year-old software engineer living in Chicago. His life was structured, predictable, and filled with deadlines. He excelled at coding and had a reputation for solving complex problems, but his passion for the work had faded. Deep down, Elliot felt like something vital was missing, though he couldn't quite name it. One rainy evening, while cleaning out his closet, he stumbled upon an old, dusty violin case. Opening it, he found the instrument he hadn't touched since high school. The wood was scratched, the strings dull, but it brought back memories of a time when music had been his escape world of creativity, emotion, and freedom. That night, Elliot tuned the violin and attempted to play. The notes were rough, the melody uneven, but it awakened something within him. Over the next few weeks, he began practicing after work, his fingers slowly regaining their familiarity with the strings. The sensation of playing filled a void he hadn't realized was there. Encouraged by his progress, Elliot started taking lessons at a local music studio. His teacher, an elderly violinist named Mr. Collins, saw potential in him. Music isn't about perfection, Mr. Collins told him during their first lesson. It's about telling a story. Elliot's growing love for music clashed with his demanding job. Late nights at the office left him too exhausted to practice, and his weekends were often consumed by work projects. His colleagues didn't understand why he was spending time on an old hobby instead of focusing on advancing his career. One day, during a particularly grueling project, Elliot missed an important lesson. Frustrated with himself, he considered quitting violin altogether. Maybe they're right, he thought. Maybe I'm wasting my time. But Mr. Collins refused to let him give up. You don't need more time, he said. You need to decide what truly matters to you. Elliot began prioritizing his time differently. He set boundaries at work, leaving the office earlier and saying no to unnecessary overtime. He spent his evenings practicing, letting the music become a source of peace and joy in his otherwise hectic life. As he grew more confident, Elliot started playing at open mic nights and small community events. The audiences were small, but the experience of performing reignited a fire he hadn't felt in years. For the first time in a long while, he felt alive. One day, Mr. Collins invited Elliot to join a local string ensemble. At first, Elliot was hesitant. The idea of committing to something outside of work felt daunting. But after a few rehearsals, he realized how much he enjoyed collaborating with other musicians. The ensemble performed at libraries, senior centers, and small theaters, bringing music to people who rarely had access to live performances. Elliot's life began to transform. He found himself waking up with a sense of purpose, eager to share his music with others. His colleagues noticed the change. He was happier, more creative, and surprisingly more productive at work. A year later, the ensemble was invited to perform at a citywide arts festival. Elliot was given a solo piece, a hauntingly beautiful melody that required both technical skill and emotional depth. As he stood on stage that night, the spotlight warm on his face, he felt a surge of gratitude. The audience fell silent as the first notes echoed through the hall. When the final note faded, the applause was thunderous. For Elliot, it wasn't just about the performance, it was about reclaiming a part of himself he had nearly lost. Elliot didn't quit his job, but he no longer let it define him. Music became a central part of his life, balanced the analytical rigor of his career. He continued to perform with the ensemble, teach beginner violinists, and even compose his own pieces. Looking back, Elliot often marveled at how a forgotten violin had changed his life. Sometimes, the things we leave behind are the very things that can bring us back to ourselves, he'd say. For Elliot, the violin wasn't just an instrument, it was a bridge back to passion, creativity, and the person he was always meant to be. Leela was 30 years old and lived in a small apartment in New York City. By day, she worked as a customer service representative for a large corporation. The job was monotonous, filled with endless calls and complaints, but it paid her bills. By night, however, Leela transformed into something entirely different, a baker. Baking had always been her passion. As a child, she spent hours in the kitchen with her mother, learning to fold dough, whip cream, and create delicate pastries. It was her escape, a way to express herself when words weren't enough. But as she grew older, life got in the way. spread, Leela found herself staying up until 2 or 3 a.m., baking dozens of cookies, cakes, and pastries to keep up with demand. Her tiny kitchen became her sanctuary, even as flour and sugar coated every surface. Running a secret side hustle wasn't easy. Leela's full-time job became increasingly demanding, and balancing her baking business with work left her perpetually exhausted. There were nights when she wanted to quit, overwhelmed by the sheer amount of effort it took to keep both lives afloat. Things came to a head when a customer accidentally mentioned Midnight Bites to one of Leela's co-workers, who quickly pieced together that she was the baker behind the popular Instagram account. Rumors spread through the office, and her manager confronted her about whether her side business was interfering with her job. Leela panicked. She feared she might lose her stable income and be forced to abandon her dream. For the first time, she wondered if pursuing her passion was worth the risk. Instead of backing down, Leela decided to take a leap of faith. She gave her 2 weeks' notice and announced that she was dedicating herself full-time to Midnight Bites. Her co-workers were shocked, but many supported her decision, placing large orders to help her get started. Quitting her job was terrifying, but it also freed Leela to fully commit to her passion. She began taking custom orders, catering small events, and expanding her menu to include unique desserts like lavender honey scones and matcha tiramisu. Leela's big break came when a well-known food blogger stumbled upon her Instagram page and ordered a box of her signature midnight brownies. The blogger's glowing review went viral, and overnight, Leela's business exploded. Orders poured in from across the city, and she quickly outgrew her apartment kitchen. With her newfound success, Leela rented a small commercial kitchen and hired 2 assistants to help her keep up with demand. She expanded her brand to include pop-up events and collaborations with local cafes. Midnight Bites became synonymous with creative, indulgent desserts that felt like a warm hug on a cold night. Today, Midnight Bites is a thriving bakery with a loyal following. Leela still works late into the night, but now it's by choice, not necessity. She's built a life where her passion isn't just a hobby, it's her livelihood. Looking back, Leela often marvels at how a simple batch of cookies changed everything. Sometimes, you have to take a chance on the things that make you happy, she says. You never know where they might lead. For Leela, baking wasn't just about creating desserts. It was about rediscovering herself, one midnight bite at a time. For months, the shop barely broke even. Some days, Daniel would sit alone for hours, organizing shelves that no one browsed. He began to doubt his decision. Had he romanticized the idea of running a bookshop? Was this another reckless escape from reality?